Welcome and thank you for standing by. At this time, all attendees are in a listen-only mode. This webinar is being recorded and will be posted publicly. If you have any objections, you may disconnect at this time. Now, I'd like to turn the webinar over to Kim Brown. Kim, you may begin.
Thank you. Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to today's webinar on an overview of Hispanics in America. My name is Kim Brown, and I'm a training specialist here at the U.S. Census Bureau. I want to thank you for joining us today for the Exploring the Diversity of Census Bureau Data webinar series. The new series created by the Census Academy team here at the Census Bureau is meant to assist the novice to intermediate data user. These webinars are a great opportunity for you to learn from our experts about how to access the Census Bureau data, tools, and resources. If you wish to follow along, take a moment now to open an additional browser. You can register for any of the webinars in the series by visiting census.gov/academy. Before I introduce today's speakers, let's go over a few important housekeeping rules. As mentioned earlier, this webinar is being recorded. For your convenience, it will be uploaded to our Census Academy site with all supplemental materials relating to the webinar within 30 business days. We welcome written questions during the webinar. Please submit your written questions using the Q&A panel, which is at the bottom center of the right side of your WebEx screen. Please take a moment to locate that now. Once you found the Q&A panel, make sure you choose All Panelists from the drop-down menu. This will ensure we see your question. Also, we ask that you do not include any personal or business identifiable information with your questions. We suggest keeping the chat panel open as well, as we will provide key links and other resources throughout the webinar. Keep in mind, you won't be able to respond to the chat. This is for us to send out links and other resources related to the presentation. In the chat box, we will be sharing the evaluation link. We are very interested in hearing from you on how we are doing. To complete the evaluation, please click on the link on the white redirect screen for completing the survey. We hope you'll take the time to complete as we strive to perfect what training we offer. My colleagues Andrew and Noelia will be monitoring the QA panel. As time allows, we will answer your question directly through the QA panel, or we will share your question with the presenter to respond to during the webinar. If we do not get to all questions with a response during the webinar, we will post the questions and responses with the webinar materials on the census.gov/academy site within 30 business days. As you know, we are in a virtual environment and sometimes technical difficulties might occur. If you are having issues, try a different browser such as Chrome, or consider logging out and coming back into the session. If you are having audio issues, try selecting the computer audio or calling into the webinar via phone. Now I'd like to introduce you to our speakers, Armando Mendoza and Ana Arredondo. Thanks again for being with us today. Armando, you may begin.
Good morning, everyone, or good afternoon, wherever you may be. My name is Armando Mendoza. I am a data dissemination specialist. I'm based in California, and I started my career with the Census Bureau just about 15 years ago. And I have had a number of positions with the Census Bureau, but the data dissemination position is the one where I spend most of my time. Ana?
Thank you, Armando. Hi, everyone. My name is Ana Redondo. I'm also a data dissemination specialist based in Houston, and I cover the areas of Houston and San Antonio, as well as some surrounding metro areas. Just wanted to be, of use to you all. If there's anything I can do, if you're joining from one of our areas, please feel free to reach out. Happy to be here, and welcome, everyone.
So today, the objectives are to learn how to identify the fastest growing Hispanic population based on the 2020 census results. We have some scenarios on language specifically, language spoken at home, and language proficiency. So we're going to talk about the Census Bureau and its programs. Again, we're going to use a little bit of time to go online live and show you how to access the data from the census. We're going to describe the geographies and how the Census Bureau collects data from different geographies. We talk a little bit about the terminology that we use. We have some quick facts on Hispanics in America, as well as accessing the American Community Survey, and then we will have some resources and wrap up. So here's an overview of the census. The Census Bureau is the largest of 13 federal statistical agencies, the Census Bureau being the largest. We conduct over 130 surveys, censuses, and estimates. In this session, we are only covering data collection efforts from the decennial census and the American Community Survey. The decennial census, which most people know us about, is conducted every 10 years and is mandated by the U.S. Constitution. The Census Bureau conducted censuses of the population since 1790. The main purpose is the apportionment of the members of the House of Representatives, and it's also used as a base to distribute trillions of dollars to the states annually. The American Community Survey is an ongoing survey and the largest with a sample size of 3.5 million addresses every year. I'll cover additional details about the ACS a little later in the presentation. So there's a number of data products that we've released since 2020. We began with the apportionment file, which is the data that is distributed to the states to reapportion the congressional seats. Then we released the redistricting file. The Census Bureau provides the 50 states, the District of Columbia and Puerto Rico, with population counts to use in the redrawing of the congressional, state, and legislative district boundaries. So this process is also known as redistricting. I will be using this file to show the growth of the Hispanic and Latino population between 2020 and 2020 census. The file contains the total of 5 race categories and Hispanic or Latino, but no granular data. For example, the Hispanic or Latino population is the aggregate of the Mexican, Guatemalan, Argentinians, etc. I'm using these files to look at the Hispanic or Latino population growth in terms of numeric and percentage change from 2010 to 2020. And in the next slides, then I will go online to show how to access this data. The demographic and housing characteristics file A contains the population counts by sex, by age, statistics of approximately 1,500 detailed groups. For example, in this file, you will be able to mine for data for the Honduran, Costa Rican, Salvadorian, and other groups in the Central America, and Colombian, Venezuelan, Argentinian, and other groups in South America. I have a slide on the Venezuelan population, the fastest growing segment of the Hispanic or Latino. Then I will go online to show you all counties in Florida where the majority of Venezuelan people reside. So this slide shows the changes in the population for the Hispanic or Latino population. You can see that in 2010, there were 50 million. In 2020, 62 million. The numeric change for the Hispanic population was a little bit over 11 million, with a percentage change of 23%. The next slide, this is the slide on the demographic and housing characteristics 5A, which greatly expands what we know about the racial and ethnic composition of the United States population. While the 2020 census had already revealed much about the overall Hispanic population and the major race groups like white, black, African American, Asian, and so on, the detailed DHCA provides data on detailed groups such as Mexican, Costa Rican, Guatemalan, etc. So you can see that the Mexican population is the largest group in 90% of the counties in the United States. The Colombian and Honduran population surpassed 1 million for the first time. The Venezuelan population grew at the fastest of all the Hispanic groups. And you can see on the table on the left, on the right, that this particular population grew 181%, 181.5%. This slide shows the Venezuelan population for all the states. The darker the state, the darker the population. So you can see that in Florida, there are over 300,000 Venezuelans, followed in Texas by 76,000, New York at 25,000, Georgia at 23,000, and California at 22,000. I'm going to go online and show you how to access these two files. By using the most robust data tool that we have a couple of ways to mine for data. We have a single search, which I'm not going to cover in this session. I am going to use the advanced search. And I'm going to be selecting my geography first at the county level. And I want to look at all the counties within California with the Hispanic population. So county in California, and then I'm going to select all counties within California. On the left filter, you can see that we have one filter, which includes all counties in California. Next, I'm going to scroll down on the filter panel to surveys, decennial census, and I'm looking specifically for the redistricting file. In my topic panel, we are going to see that we have all counties in California from the redistricting file. From here, I'm simply going to click search at the bottom right of the screen, and I want to open the data table P2. Notice there are two data products. So here are the results from the 2020 census and also from the 2010 census. I'm going to keep the default at the 2020 census, and the data is going to show on this table. You can minimize these panels to have a greater view of the table. And then here we can see Alameda County with a population of the Hispanic or Latino at 393,749. There's a number of tools that you can employ here at the ribbon, but for the purpose of this session, I'm just going to focus on how you can create a thematic map of this population. I'm going to click on More Tools, and then I'm going to click on Map. So the system is going to render a map of the Hispanic or Latino population for all counties within California. There is a little latency here, but eventually the map is going to, the map and the legend is going to render the map in California. You can use the plus or minus sign at the bottom, at the right of the screen, zoom in. And then here, you can see that the system has drawn the boundaries for every county in California. And then here you can see that there's a darker place right here, which happens to be Los Angeles County, where most of the Hispanic population, Hispanic or Latino population resides in California. When you click on any of the counties, it's going to reveal the population. So in 2020, there were 10,000,000 Hispanic or Latino, you can use the map to scroll around to Riverside County and any of the other counties. Next, I'm going to show you how to access the DHCA. And to begin that, I'm going to start with a clean search. And the way that you can do that is just clicking on the United States Census Bureau here on the left. Again, I'm going to use advanced search. And I'm going to begin selecting our filters. So I'm going to look at for all the counties in Florida. Again, you can select all the counties in Florida. You can select individual counties. For this purpose, I'm going to select all counties in California. Similar process for the redistricting file. Scroll down to the surveys. And select the decennial census. In this case, we need the detailed demographic and housing characteristics, file A. We have our geography selection and our data product. And now there's a couple of more steps to find the Venezuelan population in Florida, as I mentioned here. So here we're going to go to the topics, race and ethnicity. We're going to look at the Hispanic or Latino and expand that portion. We want to click on detail Hispanic or Latino. And then we're going to look at South American. And then at the bottom, select the Venezuelan population. We now have all the topics and all the filters that we need. We're going to click on search. In this case, I'm going to select table T01001. And this is going to render another table similar to the redistricting file, except that this one contains all of the counties in Florida. It is the same process to create a thematic map. So more tools, select the map option. And here will be a map of all the counties within California for the Venezuelan population, and we can determine the highest concentration of the Venezuelan population, which is right here at the tip of the panhandle. Again, similar process, select any of the counties, and we can see that Miami-Dade County has the largest Venezuelan population at 117,576. I'm going to close this, and I'm going to go back to the presentation. And move on to the American Community Survey. So what is the American Community Survey? A little history. Between 1940 and 2000, the decennial census had two forms. We had a short form that collected basic demographic information of the household, and we had a long form that went to a sample of the population. 1 in 6 households in 2000 received a long form where we collected a lot of detailed characteristics of the household: education, poverty rates, disability. That long form was replaced in 2005 by the American Community Survey, so that rich socioeconomic demographic data is not being collected by the ACS. And in 2010 and 2020, we only collected data from the short form. Here's a little differences. The census we mentioned is conducted every 10 years. It's 100% of the data. It is considered the official count, and it's more like a static picture of what the country looked like on April 1st of that decade. As opposed to the American Community Survey, it's a yearly survey, the largest survey that we conduct at 3.5 million addresses per year. So every month there's 295,000 households that get selected randomly in the United States. And this one is more like a moving picture where you can see trends and you can do comparisons. There's two products, so the 1-year estimates and the 5-year estimates. The 1-year estimates are for population 65,000 or more. So you can find that, the 1-year estimates, the 1-year supplemental estimates, and the 5-year estimates for population 65,000 and above. Between 20,000 and 64,999, that only comes from the 1-year supplemental estimates and the 5-year estimates. And finally, for populations smaller than 20,000, you can find it only in the 5-year estimates. It's simple statistics. For smaller geographies, we need a wider window of data collection in order to produce reliable statistics. So lots of questions are being asked similar to the long form between 1940 and 2000. I won't go to every bucket here, if you will. We're going to be talking about language spoken at home and language proficiency, but there's a lot of data, a lot of rich socioeconomic and demographic information that you can find here. The benefit of the ACS is that the data is refreshed every year, as opposed to the long form. The long form data from 2000 was good when the decade was young, so 2001, 2002. But as the decade began to get older, the data became less relevant, particularly in 2008 with a huge economic downtrend. A little bit about the census geography. I'm going to start on the right. So the smallest data collection area is a block, which is normal city block. That block nests into a block group. A block group nests into a census tract, which I'll describe in the next slide. A tract nests into a county, county is to state, and the state to the country. So here's another way to look at it. The central axis describes the relationship and the nesting relationship. And today we're going to be covering, I've already covered counties. My colleague Anna is going to be talking about census tracts and zip code tabulation areas. Census tracts are typical neighborhoods. They range between 1,200 and 8,000 in population, with an average of about 4,000, or 480 to 3,200 housing units. And from here, I'm going to turn it over to my colleague, Anna.
Thank you, Armando. So what I wanted to do is, before we dive into some of the quick facts about our Hispanic community, is just to familiarize you with some of the terminology that you will see. I think someone asked about the race and ethnicity categories. So here they are. We're currently still using 5 different race categories and only 1 ethnic group category. So we are using standards from 1997 from the Office of Management and Budget. This is a federal agency that pretty much standardizes how all federal agencies must capture data on race and ethnicity. So you see here what they are. And then for the Hispanic community, we do have a grouping under ethnicity because, as you may all know, we have Afro-Latinos, we have all kinds of Latinos, and so we can be of any race. So in terms of terminology that you will also see on our pre-tabulated tables, that as some of the ones that Armando mentioned here or showed you, are the 2 terms Hispanic or Latino. Everything the Census Bureau does is about self-identification. So if someone is more familiar with the term Hispanic, it's on there. If someone is more familiar with the term Latino, it's also on there. And this is exactly how the question is asked on the American Community Survey. We first ask about their ethnicity. If they say no, they move on to the race question. If they say yes to Hispanic, Latino, or Spanish origin, then they can specify which they relate to or which they identify with, and they can certainly select multiple. In terms of quick facts about from the ACS about the Hispanics in America, right now our community is about 63.5 million strong. And the data from the ACS is so diverse and so detailed that here we're just showcasing the median age of 30.7 years. We're a relatively younger group in the country compared to the 39 years median age for the whole nation. As Armando mentioned, we can use data.census.gov not only to access the data, but also create these maps. So based on this map, we also know that about 33.7 million Latinos are eligible voters. And the concentrations you see here are in California, Texas, and Florida. In terms of income, just want to highlight where we stand in comparison to other groups. And so the median household income is $74,000 at a national level, and our community is below this particular median. So we're at $65,882. We also want to highlight additional areas or topics where there might be a need to focus a little bit more attention in terms of research, advocacy, and definitely community engagement. The U.S. rate for uninsured individuals is 8%. You can see here that the Hispanic or Latino category is twice, a little over twice that amount. And of course, using our maps, we can point out that a large number or large concentration of Hispanics or Latinos with no insurance they're located in the South. Now to our topic of today of language spoken at home and proficiency, this is how our community is divided. So we have 18.7 million that speak English only, 30.5 million who are bilingual English and Spanish speakers. And then we have a 9.1 million group of Hispanics or Latinos who speak Spanish or another language, and they don't speak English well or not at all. And just note that all of these tables related to language are for populations of 5 years and older. Now, in terms of accessing language data, we will be using data.census.gov, which is our main data hub. And so the first scenario is really to take a look at language access for emergency management. So I am based in Houston, and I know my county is specifically prone to different types of disasters. Every year, the county, and as well as other places throughout the country, and even businesses, update their emergency management plans. And so one of the things that the Harris County does is takes a look at communities' language needs to update for preparedness, for response, or recovery programs. If you think about how people get in notifications, alerts, information post-disaster about grants or resources, they need to be able to socialize that information to the community. So using the latest ACS estimates from 2022, we're going to be using that information to locate 4 pieces of data for Harris County, the first one being the most recent county's total population, which we're going to be using. This is the DP05 table. Then we're going to be looking at identifying the top 3 languages spoken at home. Then the percentage of Spanish speakers that speak English less than very well. So this is your vulnerable community. And then we're going to create a map by looking at zip code tabulation areas and locating areas with 5,000 housing units or more that have a limited English speaking household, but of course, communicating in Spanish. So I'm going to go online now to data.census.gov. And the first thing is, simple basic search. You can type in your location. So wherever you're joining us from, just type in your location and it'll populate a wealth of data, thousands of pre-tabulated data for you. So for Harris County, we have 3,431 tables and corresponding maps. You see the official population for Harris County as of the 2020 decennial census. But for our purposes, we're going to be using American Community Survey, and we're going to be using Data Profile 05, ACS demographic, and housing estimates. From here, I'm going to go ahead and minimize all that. If you are joining us today from populations that have 65,000 people or under 65,000, you will have to access 5-year data. As Armando mentioned, there are thresholds for 1-year estimates and 5-year estimates. But for Harris County, they wanted to know our estimates for 2022. So our estimated population is 4.7 million, almost 4.8. And if you wanted to know the Hispanic population for your area, you just scroll down under race, and you can see here Hispanic or Latino. And for Harris County, we're at 2.1 million strong. Okay, So our next thing is we're going to have to add a filter. To add a filter, you just access your filters on the left-hand side. And now we need to get into our table. So we're going to narrow the search from 3,431 tables. Now, all these topics have additional data that come with it. So I know that language is under populations and people. I'm going to check on language spoken at home. And now, instead of going through 3,000 tables, now I'm left with 74 tables that are specific to language use. So the data can be very, very detailed. So here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to use B16001. This is the table that I know is going to get you information on the languages being spoken in your area. I do encourage you all to look at all of these different tables and kind of determine what is best for your research or your need. So here again, language spoken at home. We have to look at populations 5 years and over. Here I'm looking at 2021 ACF estimates, but you could go back as far back as 2010. From here, I know that, of course, Spanish is a language that is widely spoken in the Harris County area. But with that, I could scroll through here and determine what other languages are spoken here as well. Now, you can download the data via Excel CSV or zip file, and that might also help you sort things through. But I know, living here in Houston, I know we have a very diverse community. So you see all these languages and the numbers. And so I know for a fact that there's a large number of Chinese speakers. So we have 50,000. And we also have Vietnamese speakers at 84,000. So those are the top 3 languages being spoken in Harris County, Texas at this time. Now, the next thing we wanted to do is also identify the percentages of those people who speak English less than very well, but they speak Spanish, right? So if I scroll up back to Spanish, I see here that I have the category Spanish speaker, speak English less than very well. So I have 750,000. I could do the math. You know, you can highlight, copy, and paste and take it to another document, or you could also access another table. You'll find that our tables have a wealth of information and present information in various formats. So I'm going to go to S1601. And here you can also change it to the 5-year estimates if you're looking for smaller communities. And so here you also see it presented in a percentage format. So I'm going to look for Spanish, and I'm going to scroll over. I see the percentages, and you can see here now how people speak English in terms of their use of Spanish as well. So here you see that 46.9% of those who speak Spanish also speak English less than very well. So this would be my answer for the third requirement that they had. The last thing was to actually complete a map, create a map to look at zip code tabulation areas. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to back out my geography, Harris County, Texas, click on enter. And then from here, what I'm going to do is I'm going to go to geography and select zip code tabulation area. But there's so many ways, if you click on all geographies, that you can look up data. These are just more the commonly used ones. So from here, I'm going to my state of Texas. And this particular search will yield all of the zip code tabulation areas in Texas. So if I don't know all of them, what I want to do is activate this within other geographies option, click on county, and I'm going to type in Harris, or you can also scroll down and find it. And now I only get the listing of those zip code tabulation areas that are either fully or partially within Harris County. So I'm going to exit out of this. And now what I want to do is I want to look for limited English speaking households. So you'll find that our data is not only available for people, number of people, or estimated number of people, but it's also available at household level. So I want to look for this table B16002, And I know I look at the data all the time, but again, browse through and find what is more relevant to you and what you need. So this one gives it to you by household. And the way you can also see is that your universe has changed, and now you have a universe of households. So here you see that all those languages that were previously listed, you can see the number of limited Korean speaking households, etc. But because we're interested in the Hispanic community, I'm going to limit it to Spanish. So here you have your variable. I'm just going to go ahead and click on Maps. Armando showed you another way to access maps. I'm just going to click here and populate that for our county. And then go back to Spanish, limited English speaking household. And they were looking for a 5,000 housing unit threshold. So right now, I know for a fact in my map that one of the break values starts at 5,884. So to do that, there is a tool here on your ribbon called Classes. And from Classes, you can change your break values. So I'm going to limit it to 3 just to see if you're on the eyes. And I'm going to move this bar and scroll over to 5,000. You can also scroll down here and type it in if it's not exact. Click Enter, and your legend should change to 5,000. So right now I have 3 zip code tabulation areas out of 143 total for my county that might need special attention. This particular tool, Classes, is helpful if you're working with grants and there's thresholds, and you can definitely move your thresholds around. So right now, my 3 zip code tabulation areas that I need to talk to Harris County about is 77093, 77081, and 77036. Now, to view additional details about these communities, I can click on View Profile to open up a new page that gives me a lot more data about the community that lives there. So with that, I'm going to go back to my presentation and go to the second scenario. The second scenario is about voting and language access for voting. So in 2021, December 2021, the Census Bureau issued a national list of states, counties, and communities where populations of eligible voters not proficient in English are large enough to possibly trigger protection under the Federal Voting Rights Act. Now, you can access the full list at a link that we'll put in the chat and check out to see if your community is listed there. Now, for this particular scenario, what we want to do is we want to help Clark County, Nevada, plan out their Get Out the Vote campaign. And so when you're planning the Get Out the Vote campaign at the county level, you might have to think about promotional materials, social media campaigns, you know, maybe ballot translations, bilingual English and English-Spanish election workers. So what they are requesting here is the county's total citizen voting age population. So we're going to be looking at DP05 again. Then we're also going to be looking at the county's total number of Spanish-speaking eligible voters who speak English less than very well. And then we're going to identify county census tracts where there may be a concentration of people who might need that bilingual election worker. So back at census data.census.gov, I'm going to clear out all my filters at this time. Go back to advanced search. And I'm going to start with the geography at the county level. And I need Clark County, Nevada. I'm going to click on search. And so you have, again, the official population as of our last census, but I need the DP05. And this time, instead of the entire population that they're looking for, it's very specific, right? You need to be a U.S. citizen, so we have to scroll all the way to the bottom to find the information on the citizen voting age population. So you have to be citizen and 18 and up. So you have your voting population of 1.5 million people, almost 1.6. Now, the next, again, you can change this to 5-year estimates if you are in a smaller community. Now, the next thing is going back to our topics and selecting language and people. And we're going to be accessing different tables because now we have the 2 additional requirements of people having to be a U.S. citizen and also over the age of 18. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to look for a specific table, and that's B16008. And just looking at the data, I know it's on page 3 for purpose of time here. Just going to jump over. And you can see here that this particular table will give you citizenship status and then the language information. Okay. So again, here you would change, and you could go back and compare if you wanted to compare, or change it to your particular geography under 65,000 with the 5-year estimate. Okay, so from here, the data is actually divided into 2. So you do have citizens, and then you do have the age requirement, but now you have native population and foreign-born population. So what we're going to have to do is we're going to have to look at Spanish and then native, but this is the 5 to 7 year category. And so now we have to jump over to 18 and over, speak Spanish, speak English less than very well. So we have about 23,000 people, 304 as a total. You can copy and paste this over to a document that you're working on. But in addition to the 23,000 that are native born in the U.S., we also need to account for the foreign born population that has been naturalized U.S. citizens. And we have to scroll over to 18 years and over, and then speak English less than very well. So we have an additional 54,000 people that we need to account for. All right, our last requirement or our last request was to actually look at data at the census tract level to help out with planning poll sites and be able to have bilingual election workers. So Clark County, Nevada, that geography is not going to work for us. We're going to have to ask for census tracts. And so we go down here, census tracts, and now, oh, I am in Texas, but I need Nevada. And Clark County. And all census tracts within Clark County. And I'm going to go back to page 3 where I found the same data table, B16008. And instead of opening the table, I'm just going to go straight to maps because that's what they need to do. They need to visualize where throughout the county do they need those bilingual election workers. And so here you have the information. You can add your base map to just kind of get situated. And you need to change your variables over your native population first, native 18 years and over, speak English less than very well. And they were also looking at thresholds to just prioritize areas. So I think the threshold was 200. So I'm going to move this to 3, drag this over to 200, and my legend should be changing. And I'm never accurate with this dragging of the bar, so I always just use the bottom option here. So for our native population of with citizenship status and the language requirement, we have 7 census tracts. So in essence, seven neighborhoods out of 535 in this county, where there might be you might need to prioritize having those election workers. Bilingual election workers. Now, the other thing we need to do is also, now you can print this map. You can, when you print it, it actually downloads in PDF format. You can also do screenshots and then compare it to your foreign-born population that have been naturalized U.S. citizens, and click on your speak Spanish, speak English less than very well, make sure your threshold is the same so you can compare it. And now you have 74 neighborhoods, or census tracts as we call them, where you might need to take a look. Now, some of these census tracts may overlap to what the native-born population is, or where they're located, but at least this gives you a sense of what is going on and perhaps where you need to divert your resources. You can always change your colors here. If you don't like one color, there's all kinds of colors that you can use. And you can also add your boundaries. My colors, here we go. So boundaries, and you can look at places. So those are your cities. If you wanted to look at your county line, of course, the county line's already there, but you can add other stuff if you need it. All right, let me go back to the slide deck. And for research and wrap up. So besides the American Community Survey and the 2020 census that we focused on today, there are more than 20 other surveys that you can look into for information on the Hispanic community. I do encourage you all to go to Survey Explorer, which is one of our tools, and you can type in Hispanic and then press enter or any other filters that you like to see, and it'll give you a list of all the other surveys where you might be able to find information. Now, we do conduct work on behalf of other agencies. So if you see stuff italicized here, it's because we work in conjunction with other agencies. American Housing Survey is sponsored by HUD, and there may be some other ones here listed as well. Today, we only use data.census.gov, but there are so many other tools. There's a list of actually 50 different tools and visualization assistance that you might be able to use. These are open sources. There is absolutely no cost to use these. For those of you who were wondering about the other languages being spoken by our Hispanic community members, you might be able to use Microdata Access Tool to visualize what other languages are being spoken. There's Uto Aztecan, and there's other Central American and South American languages listed there in more detail. Now, we did talk to you a little bit about Armando and I connecting today from California and from Texas. There is someone available for you. So depending on where you're calling us or you're joining us from today, there is someone who is ready to help you with customized training to help you find the data that you need. We're all data dissemination training specialists. We're a team. We're scattered throughout the country. So Noelia is in Florida. Andrew is serving the San Francisco area. But we have so many more. So if you need to get a hold of your person, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll be more than happy to connect you. You have joined us today through our Census Academy program. And so on the Academy site, you will find pre-recorded webinars, courses, and of course, our very short data gems that we call how-to videos. Within a matter of minutes, you might be able to learn a thing or two about census data. To recap, we did take a look at 2020 census data, American Community Survey, and this data is very rich. Depending on what you're accessing, you can see that the very detailed data from the DHCA file from the 2020 census or the American Community Survey that we refresh yearly to better inform your research, your policy, your planning, your business. So please use it, and if you have questions, again, we're here for you. This is how to get a hold of both Armando and myself. Kim, over to you.
Thanks, Anna. I'm going to go ahead and pass it to Noelia to see if we have a couple questions that we can answer. It looks like we have a few minutes. Noelia, do you have a question or two that we can ask our presenters?
We got a lot of great questions, a lot of them particularly looking for the differences between Hispanic and Latino. We answered the majority of those, but we did get an interesting question that was asking well, we got a few of them in different forms. How do you identify if, for example, you were white, but you were raised in a Hispanic or Latino country? That's what you know, that's how you identify, but you are technically white. And so we responded with the fact that you self-identify. You self-identify, respondents are able to self-identify, and we also dropped some links helping you identify with the race and ethnicity that works for you. Ana, Armando, do you guys have anything else regarding that topic?
Well, yes, I think, go ahead, Armando.
Go ahead.
So there are some tables, depending on what you're researching, there are some tables that will say Black, Hispanic, or it will say white, most of them will say white, non-Hispanic, or it will say, so there, depending on what you're looking for, be sure to look for those tables. I don't know if you want to add anything, Armando. I'm going to try to go back online and find one really quickly. So if you want to go ahead and chime in, I'm going to work that in the background.
Yeah, so as it was mentioned before, Hispanics can be of any race. So for example, I'm Hispanic. I am originally from Mexico, but I know through records that my family kept, I know that there were some white blood, if you will, that came from Spain and France and Italy. So for me, in its self-identification, there's a two-part question. Are you Hispanic, yes or no? So yes, I'm the Hispanic. And then you move on to the race categories, because Hispanics can be of any race. So Hispanics can be Hispanic and white, Hispanic and Black, Hispanic of Asian, and so on. So it really depends on how respondents answer those questions that will determine what the data is available in the tables.
Okay, and I'm still working. It just seems like the system's a little bit slow right now. Do we have anything, excuse me, do we have another question that we might need to work on while I hopefully get a table up?
Yes, we have the most recent question. How low can we get the information? By neighborhood, zip code, city, block? How low can we get Hispanic information?
Okay, so the decennial census data gets down to the smaller geographic level, which is a census block that I described earlier. However, there are some limitations in terms of the size of the population for the block, because we're bound by Title 13 to not disclose the information. So there are some thresholds that are going to be suppressed depending on the population. So census blocks, again, are at the small geographic level. The American Community Survey begins at the block group level. There is no data from the ACS at the block level.
And I think that's pretty much it. Sorry about that. Go ahead, Anna.
I found a few tables just to give you an example of some of the tables that are very specific. So I'm assuming you guys can see my screen at this time.
Yes, we can.
Okay, great. So you see here I've mixed, Harris County and health. And under the health, you can see here that it's information specific to other races, two or more races, white alone, not Hispanic. And then you have one specific to Hispanic or Latino. So like I mentioned, there may be different tables that you may have to access. And of course, it's just a matter of what it is that you're looking for before you're able to, get the information. Now, MDAT, the microdata access tool, is used when you can't find the information that you're looking here that's already been pre-tabulated. So you can mix a number of variables on MDAT to get very specific information. And, if you're interested in MDAT, definitely reach out to us and we'll be more than happy to connect you to your data dissemination covering your area.
Thank you, Anna. We appreciate you showing that to us. So at this time, let me remind everyone that the questions that we were not able to answer during the session will be answered, and we will post those questions after the webinar. Until then, I'd like to take this time and say thank you so much to Armando and Anna for your great presentation. Before we conclude, I'd like to thank everyone who played a role in today's webinar. We thank you, our audience, for spending your time with us this afternoon. Please take a moment to fill out the evaluation by following the link provided in the chat. Look out for the recording, the presentation, and related materials from this webinar on the Census Academy by visiting census.gov/academy within 30 business days. Please check out the Census Academy for additional training resources and to register for any upcoming webinars. This brings us to a close. We thank you again for joining us today and hope you have a great afternoon.
This concludes today's webinar. Thank you for your participation. You may disconnect at this time.